What's up, Dusseldorfs? Alright, so what I think happened, based on Tiffany's horrible explanations that she thinks she did, was last year around the time when my money got stolen by P. Diddy, she still was like, no, they wouldn't do that to me, I'm famous. Then when her money got stolen by P. Diddy, she actually started cooperating with the feds or whatever the fuck she wants me to believe that she's a good person for. Now, from my point of view, when my money went missing, she went from, I'll be back in April, which is why I allowed her to even borrow it in the first place, and then it was, no, I'll be back in August, which meant after she took the money, she read the script for Sam Junk and then decided to do it. You told me you wanted to be with me. You told me you wanted to get soulmates marriage was her idea. And then you stole a bunch of money, and when I was in need, you decided to go film some smut. I'm never going to be with you. I think you're retarded. I think if that's what Sue Young does, her boyfriend's a cuck. All right? You don't know what a relationship is because you have never seen one, and everyone you know is basically a whore who dates cucks. Anyways, I will mention, I don't give a fuck about Blackpink. For some reason, Tiffany started tagging Blackpink. She probably wants them to be like, oh, he's so cute. And then she can be like, see, they think you're cute. And now I don't want to, but I'm not playing that game. I didn't steal money and then sign a contract and all that bullshit after I told someone they were going to, like, soulmates and marriage and all that bullshit. Which I didn't believe in the first place, but based on, look, you're gonna have to ask Tiffany Fong, whoever the fuck that is, because I gave her what I would give any journalist for an explanation. So, if you give me a link that leads to a bunch of criminal exchanges, I have to follow it. That's just what it is. Anyways, so for some reason, look, I said Lisa from Blackpink, whoever the fuck that is not problem is being human trafficked. Whoever the Renault guy is who took her to meet the French people, the Macrons, they're deep state. Yeah. If you look at this shit with like Natalie Portman was allegedly getting like pimped out to Hillary Clinton and all that bullshit sexually for favors. So I wouldn't be shocked if something like that was going on with Blackpink and Lisa and all that bullshit. I have no proof. I'm just speculating. Then I said, you can tell he's not really rich. Lisa's boyfriend who's fake rich because he has to pimp her out for attention. Okay, look, if Stephanie thinks that because Lisa's boyfriend lets him do it, she can do it, no. Anyways, he's fake rich because he wants people to like him and make money from pimping Lisa out. I'm not playing that game. Secondly, I said he's not rich because those families who are in the banking cabals, they all print money. They're not allowed to buy things they go to their little hooded druid circles and they tell them what they can and can't buy. You can buy cars, you can buy bonds and stocks and all that bullshit. You can't buy silver. You can't buy gold. You can buy some cryptos, the ones they have a leverage on. They like Ethereum's technically unlimited in supply, so you can buy Ethereum. You can't buy anything real. And I said, and then after Stephanie's alt tagged everyone, I was like, I stand by what I said. You're from a banking family. Was it the last head of the Holy Roman Empire before it fell? He was so inbred. He had like descended testicles. Like one of his testicles didn't descend, and the other one atrophied. So like that bloodline died because it was impossible to have an heir from all of the inbreeding, and they didn't even find that out until after they did an autopsy. So they were like forcing girls to get raped by him, and he couldn't even impregnate them. He's like some gargantuan, he's like some like grotesque, like deformed king, and they're like, here's a slave girl from the Slavic region, and she's like the town beauty princess, and she's chained to the wall, and the dude is like trying to rape her, can't, like a bulldog, and then when he dies, they find out why he didn't get an heir, and his testicles never descended, and one of them is totally atrophied. That's from inbreeding to keep the family secrets and all the money to ourselves and all that bullshit. So all those people are involved in the money laundering, human trafficking, and cannibalism club. All right, that's all only able to be done with money laundering. If it took 1 ounce of silver to do something like that, you couldn't do it because there would be too many audit trails. So for that reason, he cannot buy a ton of silver. I said, I'm going to buy a ton of silver when I come back because I don't have family people give me money, handshaky secrets. I have my own money. And Stephanie didn't believe me, and she's going to find out the hard way when she's like, oh, hey, do you want to make it? No, get the fuck out of here, rap whore. Why don't you go make some more smutty porn actress shit? This is my first time at a conference. Something tells me that by the time you're 40, you'll have an OnlyFans because Korea is 20 years behind everyone else. Anyways, look, I don't give a fuck about Blackpink. I don't give a fuck about the Ronaldo motherfucker. I don't. I said that you have fake wealth and you can prove me wrong by buying a ton of silver and that you will not or cannot, and I will show you guys why, and I stand by this. Just give me a quick second. This is the long version of why Lisa from Blackpink's boyfriend, who I have nothing against and don't give a fuck about either of them. But what I did say is you are fake rich and you can prove me wrong by buying a ton of silver, and this is why he cannot.
I would like to tell you the real story of the Hunt brothers. Unlike everything that you have heard, they were not out to corner the market to make some quick profits. They were out to do what you are probably doing today. The silver bullet and the silver shield is the idea that you should be selling all of your paper assets and buying real physical silver. This physical silver will act as a silver bullet against all the things that are wrong with this world, and will act as a silver shield to protect your wealth. Quite simply, what the Hunts were doing was exactly that. They were out to protect their wealth, change the balance of power away from the bankers and politicians that were sliding the country into a collectivist nightmare back in the 70s. The Hunts were very successful and patriotic men that deeply believe that our republic is the best system ever devised on earth, and it offers opportunities to all. They despised the Washington and Wall Street establishment that was headed by their arch nemesis, the Rockefellers. The Hunts were also a huge benefactor in the early stages of the Libertarian Party that Ron Paul seems to epitomize today. Bunker Hunt was an enthusiastic proponent of the idea that all currency should be backed by precious metals like gold and silver. The advantage of remonetization of gold and silver, as the concept is known, the governments cannot casually print money to pay for deficits in their spending unless they have sufficient gold or silver.
Listen to that again.
The advantage of remonetization of gold and silver, as the concept is known, the governments cannot casually print money to pay for deficits in their spending unless they have sufficient gold or silver.
So they can't print money to pay for deficits. So we're 35 trillion in debt, right? How? They just print money. How do they give like billions and billions and billions to Ukraine, but we only got $600 4 years ago? They print money. And then they print that money. Then they loan it to other people, us, and then we have to pay interest on that. It's bullshit.
Silver to spend.
Since it's unconstitutional.
Precious metals are in limited supply, remonetization acts as a brake to government spending, which they clearly saw with the guns and butter programs of the 1970s. The Hunts sought to create a silver cartel, similar to that of OPEC, that would shake the debt-based financial establishment of Washington and Wall Street. Bunker Hunt thought of a way to make this happen by issuing silver-backed bonds that could be redeemed.
Look at that. That's not a silver dollar, that's a silver certificate. You take this to the bank, and they have to give you legally 1 ounce of silver, because if they can't, it's fake money. The moment they got rid of that, printing money, massive deficits.
Redeemed for silver instead of cash. There was even rumors that they wanted the Republic of Texas to create their own silver money in the face of runaway inflation from Washington and Wall Street. Bunker Hunt simply wanted assets that came from the earth that were needed for industry rather than a paper fortune that was steadily depreciating under the weight of dollar bills flowing from the printing presses at the Treasury. They were particularly sensitive to this since their oil contracts were denominated in dollars. During the 1970s, the Hunt brothers were heavy hitters, betting one big business deal after another, including oil, real estate, for which they had 5 million acres throughout the world, cattle, sugar, football, and even pizza parlors. Their Libyan oil leases of the late 1960s and early 70s were bringing in $30 million a year in revenues, even when oil was at $3 a barrel. In 1970, when silver was $1.50 an ounce, Bunker Hunt decided to invest there as well. At the time, it was illegal for U.S. citizens to own gold, so silver became the natural second choice. Inflation was starting to gain steam. Vietnam was causing doubts about our government and riots in our country. The Middle East was a powder keg, and Libya, along with their valuable oil field, was in transition. Bunker personally believed that the worldwide situation was going to get worse, and as a result decided to hedge his assets. But with the usual Hunt flair for pushing all of his chips out onto the table, it did not take long for a hedge to become a very large position. Herbert Hunt first became interested in silver after reading Silver Profits in the 70s by Jerome Smith. The premise of the book was that the government was clearly following the Keynesian model of economics that would print money to debase the currency and ultimately destroy the dollar. Herbert felt that once the dollar died, the republic would die also. Jerome Smith stated that the decline of the dollar would be the first worldwide runaway inflation and depression in the history of the world. He said, quote, "The world monetary system is on a collision course with chaos. The solution is contained in the problem. One can protect oneself from the forces of destruction by converting those resources that are denominated in paper money into hard assets, into real value, preferably into assets whose values are not subject to arbitrary management by anyone, ideally assets that are both hard and highly liquid, into real money like gold and silver." The Hunts also learned that when demand rose for silver, the price would continue to rise, as its price is inelastic. They saw silver as a perfect investment, for it was a silver bullet to the collectivist establishment on Washington and Wall Street headed by the Rockefellers, and a silver shield to protect their assets as they transitioned. After reading Jerome Smith's book in 1973, Bunker and Herbert Hunt purchased 200,000 ounces of silver, and they saw their silver increase from $1.50 an ounce to $3 an ounce. At the same time, Colonel Gaddafi in Libya shut down British Petroleum and nationalized Bunker Hunt's wells. The major oil companies soon afterwards caved in. The first to break with the major oil companies was Arm & Hammer at Occidental Petroleum, when he gave in to Gaddafi's demands for 51% royalty payment. After Arm & Hammer caved, the other oil companies lined up and gave in as well. The results were an empowerment over major oil companies the Middle East countries had never experienced, and that emboldened them to form OPEC and the oil embargo in 1973. Bunker Hunt grew angry at the State Department's lack of support for his lost Libyan oil fields and hired John Connolly to help negotiate with the Libyans without any success. He blamed the big oil companies for using him as a sacrificial lamb in Libya and then hung him out to dry on his own. At the head of the major oil companies were the Hunts' arch enemies, the Rockefellers. Bunker Hunt felt that Washington and New York Eastern establishment was being led down the road to socialism by the Rockefellers.
You know, I think Pat's coming quickly. Soon I think he's going to be in a position for the Trilateral Commission. And if he shows promise beyond that, there's Bilderberg. World control, Pat. Settle for nothing else.
With inflation eating at his Libyan profits, and then ultimately no more to come, Bunker started buying silver in a big way with his brother Herbert. In 1973, they started buying. By early 1974, they had accumulated silver contracts totaling 55 million ounces, or about 8% of the world's supply of silver at the time. The brothers then took delivery of all...
Listen to that.
In 1974, they had accumulated silver contracts totaling 55 million ounces, or about 8% of the world's supply of silver at the time.
So 55 million ounces is about roughly 8% of the world's silver. So if you're a billionaire and you're from a billionaire family, it should be no problem to come up with 55,000 ounces of silver, right? They won't, because silver's real money, and if they do that, the game stops.
The brothers then took delivery of all 55 million ounces of silver. Bunker was concerned about government confiscation of his silver. He could not bring it to Texas without paying a 5% franchise tax to the state, so the brothers decided to pick up their silver and drop it off into Switzerland for safekeeping. Meanwhile, back at the Circle K Ranch, brother-in-law Randy Creeling and his brother Tillman was holding a shooting contest amongst the cowboys to find the best marksman. The dozen best marksmen were hired for a special assignment to ride shotgun on the world's largest private silver transfers in history. The Circle K Cowboys flew on 3 specially chartered 707 jets to Chicago and New York, where they were met by a convoy of armored trucks delivering them in the middle of the night 40 million ounces of silver that was loaded onto the planes, and they immediately flew to Zurich, where they were met by another convoy of armored trucks. The Cowboys loaded the trucks and the silver and dispersed it to 6 different storage locations in Switzerland. The transfer cost for Bunker and Herbert was $200,000. The storage cost for the 40 million ounces in Switzerland and the 15 million ounces still in the United States amounted to $3 million a year. By the spring of 1974, silver rose to $6 an ounce, and rumors were flying around that Hunts were trying to corner the silver market. At the time, annual production was about 245 million ounces, and the annual demand was 450 million ounces. The Hunt brothers just took delivery of 55 million ounces. The big question was, how much silver was out in private hands? Of the estimated 700 million ounces of silver, only about 200 million ounces was available for delivery against the futures contracts. That same spring, Bunker appeared on the floor of the COMEX in New York for the first time and declared that almost anything is better than paper money, and that any fool can run a printing press. The silver market dropped to the $3 and $4 range after that, but Bunker and Herbert just held on and worked other deals. Herbert's real estate deals in North Dallas were paying him.
I'm bored. I want to do something else. So basically what happens is he tries to make a deal with Iran, and then the coup happens, CIA allegedly, and then the deep state forces him to sell all of his silver when it gets up to $50 an ounce. And then just look it up. So the last time someone tried this was Warren Buffett, and they essentially blackmailed or strong-armed Warren Buffett until they forced him to sell. I don't think, Mr. Renaud, with all due respect, I don't know you. I don't want you to get involved. I don't give a shit. All right? Don't take this the wrong way. I can probably kick your ass. I can probably kick your bodyguards' asses. If you were to be like, well, these are my 3 best security guards, I could beat the shit out of them. If you guys were to find a way to kidnap me, I'd find a way to get out. You don't understand who you're dealing with. All right? Just don't get involved. I'm not saying you would. I'm saying that everyone seems to think you're some kind of like cloak and dagger. I really don't think so. I think you're a nerd from a spoiled family, and that just like Stephanie probably, you're like, oh man, I don't want to do any of that bullshit. I just want to go have a good time, but family's going to yell at me if I don't. So I don't think you are the one to take on the deep state, is what I'm trying to get at, all right? I think you should just be happy you have Lisa, who's hot as shit. Go over there and leave me the fuck alone, all right? Now, when I get back from crypto arbing, I am going to put my dick balls deep in the Deepin network, in failing infrastructure, and in silver. Not necessarily in that order. Probably silver first. My first order is going to be to get like 1 million ounces of silver. Because there's nothing illegal with the kimchi premium. It's very, very, very legal. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why I was waiting for 10 years before I touched anything was because you got to let, I was saying with the Iditarod, you don't want to be the first one to cross the line because then they're going to look at you suspiciously. Sam Bankman-Fried's already done the kimchi premium to cash out a bunch of crypto or whatever to arbitrate a bunch of money from crypto. So if you were going to arrest someone for doing the kimchi premium and making a fuck ton of money, why didn't you arrest him? He got arrested for taking that money that he legally earned and then bribing politicians with it. Okay, well, I won't do that. I'll just do what like people used to do back in the 1920s and shit like that, or the 1900s. I'll invest all into America. That way the Chinese can't buy up all the farmland and all that bullshit. And if I'm wrong, and you are super duper wealthy, you can go ahead and prove me wrong by buying the silver before I do. Because as I understand it, silver is finite resources. But if I'm right, it means that whoever is the handlers behind all these people will not let you. What do I mean by that? Look, I knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen years ago. Ashley, do you want to know why I used some of those Sean Galapagos thingies on you back in 2020? Because when I unsubscribed from him, if for any fucking reason I was to get re-added and resubscribed to something I didn't subscribe to, it's because you probably asked someone to. Why? Because You're probably some influential whatever the fuck's daughter, and like you're like nagging them and all that bullshit. Okay, great, it's fantastic. I don't give a fuck. All I see that is as people are not allowed to buy silver, and I want to buy silver. I'm going to buy so much silver that everyone's going to get mad at me even more for buying silver. Why not?